thought the diamond would be bigger. And I'm like, yeah, but do you love the guy? She's like, yeah. I'm like, that's what's important. Because again, we have so many stories about people that make fortunes that are unhappy. And why they are
Yeah.
unhappy? Because their goal is constantly to make money.
Yeah. It's an empty goal.
It's an empty goal.
Hmm.
Money's supposed to be a source of something, and it's supposed to direct you to something, and it's supposed to serve your nervous system, I would say.
I love that. That's a really good one. Good for grounding. I'm recording already.
Perfect. We entered the time portal, baby, where time is illusory, it doesn't exist.
Welcome to Openly Spoken, the podcast to help you show up, speak out, and be seen. Here you'll get to eavesdrop on connected women's conversations about self-love, confidence, healing, relationships, creativity, and more. I'm your host, Celia Antonio, and I am your guide to getting you grounded into your body, feeling your full spectrum of emotion, and expanding your fullest self-expression. I also pop in here from time to time with solo episodes where I give you tips, tricks, and resources like meditations, visualizations, and all the things to get you grounded, to get you to feel, to get you to alchemize, and to get you to expand and express yourself fully. I'm so grateful that you're here, and I invite you to now put your hands on your heart, take a deep breath, set a tone for how you want to be as you show up for this podcast, take what resonates in this podcast, leave out what doesn't resonate, and take some time to reflect and to contemplate. And if there's anything in the podcast you want to chat about, you can always reach out to me on Instagram at selfexpressedbabe. Thank you so much for being here. Now let's get started. Hello, welcome to Openly Spoken. My name is Celia. I'm so excited to be here with you on a Wednesday, our new day. I finally looked at my analytics, and Wednesday was the day that most of you were all tuning in. And we're now a bi-weekly podcast because space needed to be created. We needed to say no to the hustle of having a new episode every week. So we are now bi-weekly on Wednesdays. And today I'm so excited to offer up this conversation I had with Fia last year. You're going to hear her introduce herself as Sophie, but she goes by Fia now. And I'm just going to read off her little intro that she sent to me. Fia is a soul alignment coach dedicated to guiding women towards their truth through mindset reprogramming and embodiment. She's been exploring Eastern teachings, philosophies, and practices, as well as psychology for 9 years. In 2021, Fia went back to school to study cultural anthropology and developmental psychology to be able to learn about and understand as many cultures as possible and use that knowledge in her work to guide them to alignment by knowing their ancestral history and societal programming. And we did talk about that in the episode. We also talked about capitalism and how things and ads then become things that are a part of culture. We talked about body image. We talked about inner dialogue. We talked about transforming fear, and it's such a good episode. I'm so excited to share it with you. I also want to share one more thing about Fia, that her life's purpose, this is beautiful, her life's purpose is to remind every woman that she is not too much and not too little, and that being raw and real is exactly what she needs to thrive. And yeah, so we started this conversation with the topic of ego. And a lot of little subtopics came out, and we did reference some specific posts that Fia made about ego in the past. And I have linked all of those in the caption or the show notes below, depending on where you are listening to this or if you are watching this on YouTube. Without further ado, let's dive into this episode.
I'm excited to talk to you today because I fucking love your content.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I have some things set aside that I copied and pasted from some of your captions to bring up in our conversation today about ego. So
Oh, that's cool.
I'm really excited.
I love that. I love that. That's amazing.
I would like to give you the space to introduce yourself and what is alive within you right now.
Okay. What is alive within me right now? Yeah, I just came back from vacation, so my brain is a bit jet lagged from such a long travel. But let me see. So first of all, I want to say hello to everyone that is listening. I'm very happy that you're here, that you found your way to this podcast. Finally to me, maybe, since you probably already know Celia, since you're here. My name is Sophie, and I am a meditation and mindfulness teacher. That was the first thing I did when I decided that I wanted to do coaching. I went and I got certified with meditation and mindfulness because I feel like meditation was the key to everything for me, for my journey. And it's been 8-9 years since I started it. But professionally, I've been doing it, I would say 3 years. And now I call myself the soul alignment coach because I really like this idea of balance, of alignment. And I want to dedicate my life, to be honest, to help women understand that balance is exactly about how we like to call them the positives and the negatives. Because everybody wants to be happy and everybody keeps seeking balance, but then they're like, oh, when I feel pain, that's not good. But in reality, that's what balance is. It's about both. So that's why I call myself the soul alignment coach. And to support my practice, I enrolled into the cultural anthropology and development sociology course to help me with understanding how different cultures work and how they are structured, because our ancestry is also the key to understanding who we are and how can we find balance in the present moment.
Wow, that's so interesting about going back to school for that. I feel like from everything you've mentioned of your journey, where you came from and like where that led to, I feel like we can go in so many different directions.
Absolutely.
But we are going to try our best to keep our topic on talking about the ego, because this is what we kind of like connected with on Instagram. I loved your posts about it. And something that's coming up right now is like, I'm so curious if, like, with learning about other cultures, are there different reactions to an ego or definitions to it? Or, like, what did you
Absolutely.
experience with this piece of the ego with learning about different cultures?
So, the most important thing that we need to understand about people, that we are truly all different. We do share same values sometimes, and sometimes we do not. And a very important thing to understand about the ego is that also different cultures, if we're talking about cultures, they also have different perspective on ego. Some of them are collective ego. So they kind of perceive ego as everybody's ego, like everybody's happy, then the ego is happy. And if it's not separated, it's everybody for everybody, it's the collective. And then there are other cultures that perceive ego as an individual thing, and that happens more in, I would say, the Western societies, where we perceive our ego as something at the top. Or some people on the opposite side, like maybe in the East, or everybody who's trying to go from West to the East, they're trying to let go of the ego, right? But I would say, somewhere in the middle, because I feel like it's very important to find, again, balance between being too egocentric and between completely letting go of who you are, because who you are in this form right now, that's what you're supposed to be. So I believe in balance even in that.
Yeah. And how did you come to this new perspective about the ego? Through your mindfulness practice, right?
Yeah, I would say so. The most important thing and the most important realizations then come to me, they honestly come through meditation. Because again, people perceive meditation as just like, sitting over there and like letting go of your thoughts, and that's kind of it. There are different types of meditation. There are so many of them. That's insane. And sometimes my meditation is not actually letting go of my thoughts or focusing on my breath. It's just by being here and seeing what's alive in my brain. And then I just sit there, I close my eyes, and I'm like, where is my mind gonna take me? And then I really come to those things. Sometimes it comes from conversations with other people. I love other people. I love talking. I'm definitely an extroverted introvert. Like, I definitely charge off my energy. Yeah, I definitely get charged by myself, but sometimes I do so with people as well. And sometimes we have such conversations that then I'm like, oh my God, I can so much talk about it. Oh my God, this can create such an amazing piece. I can use it in my work. I can use it with my one-on-ones. It comes and
Mm-hmm.
goes, but usually it's through just being with myself, clear of the thoughts that I do not need.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting too, this piece of like being alone and socializing, and of looking at ego as like a collective ego and a separate ego, because with me, I've recently came to this realization. It actually came through a book. I'm reading this money mindset book called Busting Loose from the Money Game.
Mm-hmm.
And it came through in that, but it came through also right before with sitting with, I like to sit and contemplate with like quantum truths, like things like everything exists as a possibility. Like I'll take that thought and I'll sit and like just like make space to think about it, or sometimes it'll be like journaling. And the thing that's come to my realization is that this concept of I, and I would love to hear your thoughts about this concept of I and me and mine, and that like separate, is actually not real. It's something that like we've made up. It's like a hallucination or something like that. But it's very helpful with like existing in our societies, and having individual style and expression, and like when we express, it helps others, it helps the collective, but it's not actually real.
Yeah, I see what you mean, because in reality, everything that we see around ourselves is something that we think of, something that we perceive. And it's the same logic as if we do create our own reality, we do create our new neuron connection in our brain. So whenever we want to see only the negative, we will always see just the negative. So that is our reality. And then when we try to, rewind and try to look into the opportunistic part of our reality, then we only see the opportunities from crazy things, but we're like, okay, here is the opportunity for me for that. So yeah, we definitely do create our own realities, and you can call everything a hallucination, definitely, because truly, like we need to be able to identify ourselves in order to exist within the society. So if we want to be
Mm-hmm.
living with other people, and human is a social animal, we obviously need to be able to identify. And I really
Mm-hmm.
believe in this idea of being detached from the things, but attached and or connected to everything, right? So
Mm-hmm.
to truly feel the connection with the people, the things around you, your space, but at the same time, understanding that you're not attached to them, right? But you're connected to them, because that way you're really able to appreciate things, love them truly, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, you also understand that they might not always be there, and then you're not holding this egocentric possession. So again, if you really are attached to things, then you're on the egocentric part, not on the closer to more connected part of it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It's like you're kind of swapping out like being attached to belongings, like things. My
Mm-hmm.
cat wants to be in the video.
I love it.
And you're connecting more with like a belonging, like you belong to everything because it's
Mm-hmm.
all one, it's all the same. And something for me that I'm feeling really called to share for the listeners, and maybe even for your thoughts, is like something that's shifted my perspective on how I look at things, like inanimate objects, like this candle right here, for example, is like realizing that this also is like proof of consciousness, or it's like a sign of consciousness, because someone somewhere sat and was like, I want to make this candle, and they did it because like that's what they love to do and that's their thing. So like everything essentially around us is consciousness and is love, and it's all, everything comes from there.
Absolutely, yes. And then you attached your own meanings to that, right? And then it
I
creates
did.
even an even bigger connection with everything, right? So like it's everything is connected always. That is why I feel like we constantly, I don't know if it happens with you a lot, but it happens with me so much that it's crazy. So I am half Ukrainian, half Russian. I lived in
Okay.
New York, I lived in Brazil, and now I live in Amsterdam, right? And I keep meeting people with whom I have friends in common, with whom we've been somewhere at the same places, you know, because like I'm
Yeah.
obviously the oldest one in my classes right now because, you know, everybody's like 6 years younger and sometimes it's a bit hard. But sometimes you also meet people your age. And then I was talking to this girl and turned out we were at the same festival in Paris in 2017. And we were like, what? And now we're classmates and now we're friends. Like it's insane. How can you be connected to other people without actually knowing that?
Yeah.
And that also allows me to feel like I'm not surrounded by my enemies. I'm surrounded by friends. Everywhere you go, you're surrounded by friends. And that also helps your ego and your shadow to feel very good within your own skin, because that way, when you're trying to maybe start something new, instead of feeling like everybody will judge you, your thoughts are, they will support me. They'll think that it's so amazing that I'm doing what I actually want to do with my life. And from that, so much magic can happen.
Yeah. That's so beautiful. I love that about friends being everywhere. And yes, I've definitely had that same situation happen so many times, of being in the same place or realizing, even like my husband, like we realized that like we lived on the same street at one point, and yeah, it's really funny.
It's insane, yeah. Yeah, I also had this story with a friend of mine. She apparently I go to a lot of festivals, which is not true so much, but apparently I have a lot of stories about festivals. And she actually told me that she's with her partner now for 4 years, I think. And she told me that eventually she found him on the background of one of the photos of her on the festival. And I've heard of this
What?
happening again so many times. So even when you're like, you sometimes don't even think about it, but you have so many people on the background. And maybe you'll
Yeah,
meet them again, or maybe you just pass by them again, and then they'll become your friends as well. And again, with my friend, when we found out we were at the same festival, we went through like all the pictures trying to find if we have each other in the background. But we didn't go too much into that. But I think we could find, because we have so many videos from there. So it's
that's so
amazing how you can.
crazy.
It's amazing how you actually, how the world is small. To be honest, it's not that big.
That makes me wonder if like all the people that we end up meeting, if maybe they exist in our background first, or even like that is also bringing to mind, so many things are coming into my brain right now, but one of the things is like, you know, if there's something that you want to manifest, you start seeing everyone around you creating it. And instead of getting like jealous of like, why does she have that, I want that, instead the reaction that I like to do is like, oh my gosh, it's coming towards me. It's in my background is now what I'm gonna say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I see what you mean. Absolutely. When you start wanting something, you meet people that have the same direction or had the same direction, especially because it is, again, jealousy is an amazing feeling. Jealousy points you to what you want. It mirrors your true desires, or it triggers the things that you definitely don't want in your life, maybe you still have. So it's one or the other. And I truly believe in also the rule of 5. So if you want to make your, I talked about it on my Instagram recently as well. So if you want to make your dreams come true, your dreams to become your goals, to become your reality, you also need to surround yourself by the people that are pursuing the same direction. Because when I just started coaching, I was the only one in my friend group, surrounded by so many people, but nobody was doing that. And it felt weird to do that. Because when nobody does something, you're like, okay, what's wrong with me? Like, maybe I'm
Yeah,
not
people
supposed to
don't
do
get
that.
it. They're like, what do you do? Do you have a job?
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, people don't get it. Second of all, you can't really share with them because they're like, good for you, Sophie, but like we don't get it. And I understand that they don't get it. And then later on, I got into the masterminds, I got into different programs, and I was like, okay, now I have people that I can share those things with. And then my growth was happening faster because I stopped feeling deep inside. Even if you don't show it, even if you keep ignoring it, deep inside, if you do not have people that have the same values as you, you're like, okay, maybe I'm crazy. Why am I doing this? I don't understand why I'm doing that. Nobody else is doing it. Because again, human is a social animal. And if you do not see, and we're like monkeys, you know, repeating one after the other. So if you do not see other people doing at least a similar thing than you do, you are more likely to give up on your dreams just because you don't feel like it's possible, because you don't see that it's possible.
Mm-hmm. That was so good. I had to put a fire emoji up.
Yeah, I saw that.
I actually saw that post about the socializing and the big five. And I also saw a post where you said, I think you said jealousy is a representation of what's possible for you.
Yeah.
And you were talking about you were talking about how judgment, I think you said something about like judgment being something that like material you can alchemize or something like that, or maybe that's like my thoughts. Oh wait, I have it here.
You have
You
it? Good.
said every judgment is an invitation to dive deeper into your own programming.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes. Because so we keep thinking that if we judge something and then, you know, it's something that is not for us, you know, like it's something that's away from us. Something that's away from you will never trigger you. Something that's away from you will never leave you with feeling something towards that. You will definitely feel indifferent towards something that you do not attach yourself to. So when there is the judgment, there is attachment, and there is something that is painful within you that you still need to heal, let go of, understand within yourself to actually transform it into acceptance. Because you cannot, if other people judge you, if you judge other people, you can never change them. I keep thinking this phrase for so many days that like it's easier to change a person than to change a person.
What does that
mean? You cannot change another person, but you can change them on another person. Like for example, like the easiest thing, if you have this toxic friend, you will never change them. You can only change a friend, find another one. So you can never change a person. You can only change a person, because you can only work within yourself and you can decide that you want to change, but you will never be able to transform another person unless they want to transform themselves. So when you judge another person, and this is also your desire to change them because you don't like the way they are. And this is first is something within you. Maybe it's control. Maybe you want to control someone, but why do you want to control someone? Maybe because somebody was controlling you, or maybe because you're scared, you're attached to them, you're scared to lose them. So if they are not under your control, they are free to go. But if you're connected to them, you're not going to want to change them. You're not going to want to judge them. You're just going to be there for them. And if eventually this connection fades away, then it's a space for something better to come up and for you to grow.
True. So true.
Yeah. Life is very interesting with showing us so many different things. And I have felt so much judgment towards other people. And I feel like it was mostly because I could not believe how brave they are for not caring about what other people will think. And that again comes to what I'm studying right now, because I kind of grew up in both Ukraine and Russia. And I would say in Russia, the things are very conservative. So you can't really, you know, show off. You need to be like everyone else, kind of. Not maybe right now, things are changing always, but when I was growing up, it was like, don't show too much of this, don't do too much of that, don't attract attention, don't make friends. You come to school to study, not to make friends, things like that. So with that, I would start judging people that were doing the opposite of what I was told, what in reality I desired to do.
Mm,
So our judgments are usually the things that we want to do.
that makes so much sense. And that like ties back into our little piece about everything being made up. Like when we have that judgment, like we're projecting what story we're creating, when really like a person that we're judging, they have their own higher self, they have their own desires, they have their own dreams, and like they're allowed to follow that in their own way. They don't have to do it in a way that you agree with because it's their own life.
Absolutely. Especially because you know what I like about, again, those things? This is how we see other people. Like if you look at me right now and I'm holding a book in front of you, and the cover of the book is red, but I'm telling you it's black, the book is black, you might be like, you're crazy, it's red. But then I turn my side to you, and my side of the book is actually black. Because my perspective will always differ from yours, because it's so many things: your experiences, the way you grew up, your culture, every person you met, every place you've been to, everything you read about, everything you watched about, like everything creates your whole reality. So when it's very hard, honestly, it's not even hard, it's stupid, honestly, to judge other people, because their perspective is always very different and will never be the same as yours. Like that's what I feel like the easiest thing to understand and the hardest thing to actually accept within ourselves, is that another person will never be 100% like us. Not our friends, not our partners, not our parents, no one. And the only thing we can do is actually love them unconditionally.
Yeah. And it's a better use of our energy, like if we're unhappy, to see what we can change or realign within ourselves instead of other people. That's just wasting energy because, like you said, like
Absolutely.
people don't change if they don't want to change.
Absolutely.
So going back to this piece of judgment, I have another thing from your Instagram written down about, so this was your post about showing up on camera. And you said that showing up on camera shows a lot about your love and trust for yourself. And when I read that, I was like, this is like another good piece to bring into a conversation about the ego. And a conversation about how like we're making up these fears and these scenarios that aren't actually real. So I would love to know in that, like, what is coming through for you to share.
So first of all, it's a very important piece that I wrote, and I definitely suggest to everyone to actually go. I don't post that many posts right now because I'm very busy with many things, so it's not far away to read it and actually see it, because it's very important. But
I'm going to post it in the show notes. I'm going to write down a note to post it in show notes.
So while you do that, I'll share what I have to say. So that actually came to me during the photo shoot that I was doing for myself. So I love doing photo shoots, but that was not always the same. And it wasn't always like this. And it's so interesting because I remember many times when I lived in Brazil, we lived in this beach house, and it wasn't, like perfect Pinteresty. Like it was not like that. And I remember when my boyfriend's family saw what kind of content I was producing from that house, they were like, how the hell do you do that? Like this house does not look like that. And I'm like, that's the way I see it. You can always find the angles. You can always find like pretty things and just make it up. So when I was taking those photos, this photo that is on the post, I was actually thinking about the fact that I could never before look at myself and be like, damn, she's hot. Like I could not do that. And that also was coming from a part of me that when we do not love ourselves, it's very hard for us to look in the mirrors. So forget the photo shoots. You avoid mirrors. How can you actually go there and like take photos of yourself? Yeah. And I always recommend with everybody that wants to actually start this, for me it's like an embodiment practice, to be honest, like for real, and to start doing those little photo shoots at home with yourself. You don't need anybody else. You don't need a photographer. You just need something that you feel nice about to wear, or maybe nothing, whatever works, and just like stand in front of the camera and just like look at yourself. Like how I do it, I record videos and then I just break them into screenshots because it's the easiest thing to do again. And when I do it with the frontal camera, I actually see my angles, I see how I look, I see how I move, and it actually inspires me, right? And it allows me to feel like, okay, that looks good. You see right away what works and what's not. And when you're taking a photo of yourself, the more you show your face, the more you show your body, shows about how much you love yourself and how much you accept yourself for who you are. Because in the society, we have certain standards of the body, of the face. And first of all, in different societies, they're different. That already shows you that everything is a hallucination because different societies have different perspectives. That means that there is no standard. And second of all, it is created mostly to sell things for capitalism. All of it is created for capitalism. It's my favorite story about how the female razors came to reality. They were not selling enough male razors. They wanted to sell more. So they put this idea into women that body hair not supposed to be there. And that's how women started to shave.
Whoa,
so they
I didn't know
decided
that.
to yeah, that's what I'm saying. They decided that they wanted to sell more, so they did this. So anytime when you see that there is some kind of belief system programming coming to your mind, try to, if you catch it, try to sit down and actually think, who does it belong to? Whose voice does it have? Because I'm gonna guarantee you 99.9% it's not gonna be you. If it's you, then you have the opportunity to change something. But if it's a commercial, if it's a TV show, if it's a model, if it's your parents, if it's your boyfriend, if it's your friends or something else, then it's not yours. Then it's not supposed to be there. So you need to actively keep working on relieving that, because this is not you. This does not belong to you. It's a t-shirt that doesn't fit because it's not yours.
Yeah.
So yeah, the more I was accepting myself and accepting my body with the way it is, and I'm a very short person. I'm 4.9. I'm very short. And sometimes it can be also hard for me. And I remember that I wasn't accepting my height because I was like, okay, I'm tiny. People are making fun of me. They always ask for my ID everywhere. It's just very funny, you know, like I went to the spa the other day with my mother and they were like, are you 14? And I was like I'm 23, like what the hell, you know? So it was like super funny. And at first I was like very self-conscious about that part of myself, but then I was like, okay, you know what, that's fine. This is who I am, and it's my thing, and it's okay. So everything that we have within ourselves is just our thing, and that's again what makes us different. And nobody will be like us, and we will never be like anyone else, and that's perfect.
It's interesting how, like, no matter what body we're in, we have those insecurities. Like, for me, I'm 5'10", so I'm like a whole foot taller than you, and even I had insecurities about my height. And it wasn't until I saw girls who were really tall wearing heels, like, in real life, like, in classes in my college, that I was like, "Huh, they look great. I can do that too. Like, why not?" Like, somebody else showing up in their liberation and their light really gives you that permission. And then there was something that you just said that I wanted to touch on, but it's floating away, so I guess I'll just
Maybe it will come back.
I wanted
There you
to
go.
share that, yeah, right, there it is. It's because you said maybe it'll come back. The universe heard, it'll come back. I remember being mind blown when I found out that there's this like narrative of when a man proposes to you that they have to spend, like, I think it's 3 months salary or 4 months salary or something like that. I remember being mind blown when I heard that the first time that was like introduced, it was in a fucking commercial. It was in a commercial, and then it became like a societal thing. It's so crazy. So crazy, this like
Yeah,
whole capitalism
absolutely.
bullshit.
No, yeah, absolutely. Because they just it's so interesting. I live in Amsterdam and the capitalism started here. So it's very interesting.
Ah,
Yeah, capitalism started in the Netherlands, and it's very interesting how things are working, because that's again another invitation for us to adjust that belief system, that thought in your mind, even when you want that engagement ring for, a crazy price, but your loved one cannot afford it. Do you care more about the diamond or do you care more about the loved one? I have to say, I was attached to that idea,
mhm.
and I wanted my loved one to get me the most amazing engagement ring. And we even had like arguments about that, because he was like, "Babe, this is not possible right now." And at first I was like, "Why is it not possible right now?" But then I was like, "Okay, it's not about a stupid ring. It's about the person I want to marry in the future.
Mhm.
It's the most important
Exactly.
thing."
Yeah.
And this thing that you need to have a huge diamond, and I'm the girl that prefers moonstones anyway. Like I always preferred moonstones, but at some point I really wanted a diamond, just because like I felt like it was the societal standard.
Mm. Mhm.
And then we had this conversation, and we were like, let's just see what we like. It's not about what stone's going to be there. It's something that's just going to look nice, on me.
Yeah.
So it's this thing is very hard. Like a lot of
Yeah.
people have that. A lot of women have that, I would say. A lot of my friends also have that. Some of them that are engaged, they were like, I thought the diamond would be bigger. And I'm like, yeah, but do you love the guy? She's like, yeah. I'm like, that's what's important. Because again, we have so many stories about people that make fortunes that are unhappy. And why they are
Yeah.
unhappy? Because their goal is constantly to make money.
Yeah. It's an empty goal.
It's an empty goal.
Mhm.
Money's supposed to be a source of something, and it's supposed to direct you to something, and it's supposed to serve your nervous system, I would say, to make sure
That's
that you
so
can pay
good.
rent, that you
Mhm.
can have food, that you can have water, I don't know, clothing to wear, maybe travel, whatever serves your nervous system. A spa, by the
Mhm.
way, Balinese massage is the best thing I've ever had. So yeah, that's what's money's supposed to do. Do not let yourself get into this capitalistic marketing of having so many things, because in reality we do not need them. What you feel
Mhm.
connected to, get it. If you feel
Yeah.
attached to it, throw it away
Mhm.
or
For
give it
me,
to someone who may need it.
yeah. Yeah. For me, the thing that I recognized in myself that I took on was like this need to have this big, beautiful, fancy wedding. And I remember when I got engaged right before the pandemic. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember even having this like, someone loves me, like this, like, oh, this diamond is so beautiful, and like being in my ego with it. Like there's this comedian, I don't remember her name. I think it's Taylor Tomlinson or something, Taylor
Okay.
Thompson. And she has this set where it's called like Quarter Life Crisis. She's talking about how she's 25 and how she broke off an engagement, and she was sharing about how when she put the ring on, how she like turned into a total bitch, and she'd be at the grocery store or she'd be at like Target and she'd be like, oh, I don't need help, someone loves me. And like
Oh my
that
god, that's
that kind
hilarious.
of, yeah, that kind of energy of like being better than other people,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely took that on when I got
Mm-hmm.
engaged
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in a
Mm-hmm.
small way. And right away, I started planning the wedding. I bought my dress right away. We were
Mm-hmm.
planning this like big wedding on a horse ranch in Montana.
Mm-hmm.
And then the pandemic happened. And
Mm-hmm.
with the pandemic, like it really had us sit with and be like, what are we doing with our life? Like, what do we actually
Damn.
want? What do we really believe? And like,
Mm-hmm.
what do we really want to create? And helped us really let go of
Mm-hmm.
this idea of like having this big wedding. And we ended up just going to the courthouse. And even at the courthouse, I didn't end up wearing my dress. I'm like, I want to wear a white dress because it was something that was told to me that I should do. Like
I get
my
it.
my husband is the one that brought that up. He was like, we were having a conversation about it, and I'm like, wow, you're so right.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting how those programmings and those societal rules affect us, especially with the weddings, especially because like for my partner and I, it's a very hard topic in terms of my family is in Russia and Ukraine, his family is
Mm,
in Brazil, so the opposite
mm,
continents, and then we also have friends everywhere in the world. So when we actually gonna do it, how are we gonna do it, and how much money other people have to actually attend it? You know what I mean? Because not everybody's on the
yeah.
same page. You know, not everybody can afford a 1,000 euro ticket. You know.
Yeah. And then like
So yeah.
the list, like you want to keep it small, and then it just gets like we
Mhm.
wanted it small and just kept getting bigger
Mhm.
and bigger and bigger. So it felt really
Mhm.
good to just let it go.
Mhm. No, it's great, especially because like I truly believe that if you want to have a grand wedding, you absolutely can do it, but it's also important to remember that you also need a place to live. Like you just need to
Yeah,
make sure that it's not gonna cost you your life afterwards. Like like
exactly.
today you're celebrating with, I don't know, champagne fountains, and then the next day you're like, okay, how am I gonna pay rent for the next month because I spent everything.
Exactly. That was
So
our
it's
thought.
very,
We were like,
yeah.
let's buy a house instead of
Mm-hmm.
putting
Yeah.
ourselves in debt to pay a wedding. Like I know so many people who are divorced and they're still paying off their loans from their wedding.
Yeah. And you know what comes up to me right now? My favorite TV show in the world is Friends. I
Ooh, I
love it
love
so
that show.
much. And I remember when Phoebe and Mike were planning their wedding. Phoebe's my favorite character, although I'm
Mm-hmm.
Monica, to be honest. And everybody was like, it was so funny because they were constantly, Phoebe was constantly within this, should we have a grand wedding or should we give it to charity? Should we have a grand wedding or should we
Mm,
give it? So you can see how her ego and how her programming was jumping around her basically common sense,
mm,
the fact that she just wanted to have a
yeah,
wedding, but the society and other friends, other people were telling her, no, 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 you're supposed to have a big wedding. You're supposed to have this and that. So that is actually very interesting. And the fact that you really need to decide, is it what you want or is it what other people want
exactly.
or
And it is,
expect of you? Not even want, expect from you.
yeah. And it's really hard too when like your best friends are like, no, but we have to have like I remember when I was planning my bachelorette,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really resonate with like going somewhere and partying and getting drunk and all of that kind of stuff
Uh-huh.
that's like in
Mm-hmm.
media. I'm more of like I want to go somewhere in nature and go to a nice ass spa and
Mm-hmm.
be in
Mm-hmm.
luxury of nature and like pampering my body. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember having friends like, no, we gotta like go to Vegas or get drunk or, all of those things. And I'm like, that just doesn't sound fun to me. And I'm not saying that doing that is bad. It's just this like getting to a space of where you recognize your desires and you stand for them and you don't mold
Mm-hmm.
yourself to fit into and please the people around you. I think getting to that space is just
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Exactly. And it's about also holding your boundary within what kind of person you are and what kind of person you want to be, because people will always talk and people will always say, "No, but you got to do that. No, but you got to do
Mhm,
this." And you're like, "No, I'm going to do what I want to do because it's my life." And you're not being
exactly.
rude at that moment. You're being authentic and you're following the balance between your highest self, your ego, and your shadow. That's the
Mhm.
balance that we all need to proceed to. A little bit of ego, a little bit of shadow, and then everything is great.
Yeah, I love it. And even though that fear comes up, like there's something that you said in one of your posts about how like fear will never control your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually copied and pasted something that your boyfriend said to you
Mm-hmm.
in that post about like so you were talking about how you felt fear because imposter syndrome came up and you were
Mm-hmm.
feeling like a fraud. And I love what he said. He said, a real fraud never thinks he's a fraud. He thinks he's a genius. That was so good.
I got myself a very wise man. I know that. Yeah. I remember when he said that, I was like, oh my God. Oh my God, he's right. Yeah, absolutely. He's like my, I always say that he's my biggest spiritual teacher because
Mm,
he's always saying the right thing for me because he's again there for me in the moment. So he's not trying to put me on how he thinks life is. He's just trying to remind me of basically the universal truths. Because for sure, the imposter will never think that they are an imposter. They're just gonna be like, okay, that's amazing. I'm super cool. I'm great. So yeah, that phrase stuck with me for a very long time. And I also have something to say about fear. This is some practice that I started doing recently, and it helps me and other people that I teach it to as well. I recently had my first women's circle.
Ooh.
And it was amazing. It was meditation, mindfulness, shadow work, and it was great. The women were so happy, and I was talking to them about that because they were like, when I feel fear, like I don't know how to get over it. So we feel fear in our stomach. But another thing that we feel there in that area is actually excitement. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think 90% of our happiness is actually in our bowels. Like all those happy hormones are actually in our bowels. I think it's 90%. I don't truly remember. So whenever you feel fear, you are able to transform it into excitement. Because fear is excitement. When you're about to start something new, again, it's very hard for your consciousness, for your mind to be like, okay, we're gonna switch now. Because uncomfortable comfort zone is also a comfort zone. Right.
Yeah.
So when you feel fear, you're always able to transform it into excitement and be like, oh, I'm about to start something. Yay, I get to start something. I have so many opportunities, so much time still to like try so many things. So it's always good to transform that fear into excitement, because that helps with actually pursuing with your goals and your dreams without actually being like, okay, that's scary. It is, but it's also cool.
I love that. That's so good. I know so many people are going to be deeply served by hearing that. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you so much.
I want to move into, there are a few questions I like to ask at the end of every episode. The first one is, what does self-love mean to you?
I would say that self-love is about honoring yourself. Like, you can believe in whatever you want. You can believe in God, you can believe in reincarnation, so many things that you get to believe to in this world. But what you remember is this life. And by honoring yourself, by loving yourself, you get to create this life amazing. And I always connect self-love to actually honoring myself, because I really want to live this life in a way that when I am about to exit this consciousness, I'll be like, I did what I wanted to do and I did not hold back. That's like this fear actually what guides me through life, because I do not want to live with regrets.
Yeah.
So self-love for me is honoring myself.
And then finish this phrase, the way to my heart is...
Wow, so such interesting things that you're bringing. They actually make my brain be like, okay, let's think about it. Say that again.
It's a mini coaching session.
I love it. Yeah. Say that again.
The way to my heart is
through honesty. Like, I don't care what a person is. I just want them to be honest with me and themselves, because that's all that matters.
And then, when do you feel most alive?
I would say, honestly, after meditation, because that allows me to calm my thoughts down. Because there's this idea that if you don't have thoughts, you're dumb. In reality, like, when you have less thoughts in your mind, you actually get to do more, because your brain is not wasting time on thinking about thousands of things that actually don't matter in this moment. So meditation allows me to create more space between the thoughts. And then I just feel connected. And when I create, I'm just feeling so happy. So yeah, that puts me in this state where I get to actually do whatever the hell I want.
So true. That brings to mind, like, you were talking about balance between positive and negative earlier. That brings to mind, like, balance between like masculine and feminine energetics. Like, when you nurture the feminine side and make space, then when you go into like working or creating or doing something productive, like, that gets to be way more magical and way more potent and way more powerful. So I
Yeah,
love
classic
that.
meditation. Yeah, classic meditation is definitely more about structure, more about like more masculine, and then it invites the feminine into the play.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And also the more I meditate, the more I see that like how much change it brings into my life, and that's why I always teach meditation, and I even have a little gift for everybody that's listening.
Ooh.
So yeah, I again want to thank everybody that is there for us, that got to hear and will listen to more. And I just want to say that if you feel like you want to try my meditations, because I'm a big fan of guided meditations, I have a meditation for you. It's a body scan meditation, specifically recorded in my way, in my style, if I can say. So if you DM me that you're from this podcast and you want this meditation, DM me and I'll send it to you.
Awesome. I have one last question.
Go on.
Saving the best for last.
Okay, I'm ready and scared and excited.
What is your favorite part about being a woman?
Okay, I would say how artistic I am, I would say.
Mm.
Like again, my boyfriend and I, we always talk about it, that I always see things very creatively and artistically, and I always am able to create so many things. Like I feel like I am very creative, and I feel like that comes from my feminine part. I paint and I do so many things, and it's even very sweet that sometimes he has a digital marketing company, and sometimes when he creates something, he looks at me because he needs that creativity. So he kind of looks at me and he taps into that. So he calls me his muse, and it's very interesting that like artist is really is more. Something happened here. That artistism is more in me as a woman, I would say, for me at least. But again, I feel for everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Openly Spoken. I know that there's an abundance of content online, so I really appreciate you giving me your ears today. If this episode shifted something for you, please share this with a friend and/or write us a podcast review if you're listening to this on iTunes so that more people can find this. If anything shifted for you from this episode that you want to have a conversation about, I would love to hear from you. Just send me a DM over on Instagram at selfexpressbabe, and that is in the show notes. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.